Hello? All right. Okay, so we're not starting just yet, but for the teams, there's a timer here in the middle, your 2-minute timer, 120 seconds. And then the teams that are on deck, where do you want them to go, Zach?
When teams that are on deck, please come around the back of the hall over to this side of the stage next to Amanda, who will help you get your lapel mic on. And then you'll be handed the flying clicker when the other person walks, before you walk off the stage.
Okay, is that good? All right. So just a quick reminder. So we do actually have a pretty tight schedule. So the 5 minutes is really 300 seconds, and we will escort you off the stage if you're not willing to do it yourself at that point. All right. And so the other quick reminder, because we're about to go live, is that we're live streaming it. So gaffes and all, right? We're not going to have a little AI checking to make sure that everything is good. So I'm going to reiterate that in a minute when we're live. But just letting you guys know. And then our goal when we have the presentation is we'll post these on the website for the Walleye Tank site, and then you can connect them as you feel useful for yourselves. Okay? And thank you for coming. All right? And thanks for the walleyes, but I just do it quick before the live stream. Maybe it started already. Oh, great. Well, welcome everybody. All right. Okay, we're gonna officially start in like 2 minutes. Your 2-minute warning. Yeah, please, first team, come on down. Come on, smart lead, come on down. We'll get set. We're not gonna have a long intro. Yeah, Alec, come on down. Okay, welcome to the 7th Walleye Tank here at the University of Minnesota. I'm excited to introduce the whole array of participants and supporters. I want to just answer a couple of quick questions. Why should we celebrate entrepreneurship? So my name is Stephen Ecker. I am director of the Office of Entrepreneurship at the Mayo Clinic. From the point of view of the Mayo Clinic, bench to bedside is really an oversimplification. It's almost always bench to business to bedside before you bring products to market and new solutions for our patients. So we really need the entrepreneurial ecosystem to be live and vibrant for our next set of therapies and diagnostics for our patients. That thus means that entrepreneurs are just essential for that innovative community. So we are excited to support this. Of course, being able to start a company, there's the phrase I'll use, it takes a village. So we want to thank a lot of the participants. And today's event is co-sponsored by the University of Minnesota and John Stavig, Director of the Home Center for Entrepreneurship. John, come on up.
Thanks, Steve, and I'll echo Steve's welcome. Thanks for coming to the university today. And my name's John Stavig. I'm the director of the Home Center for Entrepreneurship here at the Carlson School. And our mission, aligned with today's event, is to inspire, educate, and connect the next generation of entrepreneurs. I see a lot of familiar faces throughout the room today. We do that through experiential classes here at the Carlson School. We do that in partnership with TechCom and College of Science and Engineering through the MinCore, which is part of an NSF program that, again, a number of the presenters today have gone through. And we're excited to have you here. We also support entrepreneurship through our outreach programs, the Minnesota Cup, of which 2 of the winners today, we'll have one in our Life Sciences division, as well as in the student division. We've organized that. This is our 15th year, so we've had, through this year, over 15,000 entrepreneurs go through the process. We've given out, after this year, it'll be $3.4 million in cash prizes. Those companies have gone on and raised over $400 million, so it has become kind of the first step in launching a business in Minnesota. We're proud to say that it is entirely free to the entrepreneurs. We have a number of panelists here who are judges as well, and a great resource. So hopefully some of the others also applied, but the winners today in each of those areas will move on automatically to the semifinalist area process. So they'll be one of the 10 semifinalists in each of the divisions. So we're excited to have our partners here from Mayo here today who've organized this, and glad to have everybody here. So I'll turn it back to Steve.
Thanks, John. Okay, so I want to thank a couple. We have Walleyes. We have 9 here today. You're gonna get a 30-second intro to each one. There's also bios on the site. Almost everybody. We'll make sure that's up before we're done. Wondering. I also want to thank the Rich Entrepreneurial Network. We have many people in this room that represent a fantastic entrepreneurial network that continues to grow. And then finally, in the words of Steve Jobs, I want to thank the crazy ones in the room, the entrepreneurs. That thank you for coming and willing to do this and to take the risks and to make the world a better place. Okay, so today we have 18 teams and companies to date. It's actually the largest set of recurring companies. So a number of these companies have moved along, and some have shifted from the junior anglers to the professionals, which is very exciting for us. We have a number, of course, new participants, and everybody is doing this in the 120-second format that we've been our tradition. And 3 minutes of questions and answers. So we have 2 divisions, and the junior anglers are being judged by this side. I'm going to have the Walleyes do a quick intro.
I'm Perry Hackett. I'm a professor in genetic cell biology and development at the U for the past 39 years, and I've started 3 companies.
I'm Susan Kimmel. I'm a market research consultant in medical device and also a Gopher Angel.
I'm Tracy Downs. I'm one of the founders of Collider Co-working. I have a technology company, Area 10 Labs, and have spun off multiple companies.
Mary McCarthy with the Office of Technology Commercialization here at the University of Minnesota, and I've launched 2 companies.
Fernando Bazan. I'm been in biotech for a long time, Bay Area, Genentech. Most recently, I've been the CTO at Biotechne. Right now, I'm involved in a sort of proto startup in the sort of synthetic biology, protein engineering field.
Let's go ahead and have the floor. You guys have been great.
Hi, I'm Sarah Russick, lifelong entrepreneur, launched 2 companies, led them to exit, launched Gopher Angels to invest in startup companies, and also co-founded Capita 3 to invest in women-led companies.
I'm Julie Henry. I'm the Director of Operations for Mayo Clinic Ventures and Mayo's Department of Business Development.
Hi, I'm Russ Strati. I'm Associate Director of the Venture Center, which is part of the Technology Commercialization Group. We help create the startups out of the University of Minnesota. Prior to coming to here, I've co-founded 2 startups.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have a few more key pieces. So when we're done, please join us for a post-pitch networking event. It's the information is in the back or at the end of your brochure. You're all invited. It's just in the atrium, so we will have some goodies to there. So from a process point of view, we're going to actually have the first 9 teams pitch. Then there's going to be a short intermission while the judges will go and deliberate, and then we will tee up the professionals. So I think, is that anything else, Amanda? Oh, yes. Thank you. So, sorry. I have some advertising. All right. So, first off, the Mayo Clinic's Office of Entrepreneurship, we're actually hiring. We actually have several positions opened. If you're interested in helping support entrepreneurship, these are positions that include an entrepreneurial scholar program with education for postdocs and one other position that doesn't require the PhD. Please contact me. in Rochester, we have the next two events are coming up. There's an August 1st Investors and Innovation Forum that's evolving, and we've had this on a number of occasions. This will be coming up. If you're interested, please contact Dr. Leitner to add to the mailing list. And then finally, for everybody, the next Walleye Tank is going to be December 6th in Rochester, Minnesota, as we do our tradition of flipping between the university and down in Rochester. So I think that's it. All right, are we ready? Okay, so without further ado, we're going to start with our first junior angler, Smart Lead.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Ala Sada and I represent Smart Lead team. Did you know that the National Institute of Health requires healthcare providers to wear protective garments anytime they are exposed to radiation? And if you're asking yourself where is the problem, let me tell you that a typical protective garment weighs about 10 pounds and is worn for long hours. So can you imagine yourself if you have to wear a heavy garment while you are performing a critical procedure on a human being? What will happen to your body by the end of the day? Let me show you. This photo here shows where the body experienced tension, discomfort. And we all know the end results of this combination: musculoskeletal injuries, burnout, and eventually disabilities. So we need to think of a solution that provides protection not only from radiation, but also from physical injuries. And this solution is our product, Smart Lead, which is an ergonomically designed garment with technology to improve posture. And if you're asking yourself why to choose Smart Lead, because this product will increase provider comfort while they are taking care of human lives. Our team comprises of a specialty trained physician, and we are working with the Mayo Clinic Department of Business and Mayo Clinic lawyers and biomedical engineering to develop our first prototype. Increasing provider comfort will decrease their tension, which will lead to more efficiency, save their time, and increase their productivity, which will all lead to more revenue. At Mayo Clinic Rochester only, there are 5,500 vests purchased with an average cost of $500. So we're talking about $2.7 million from one hospital only. The future for this market is very promising in the US, as we have over 6,000 hospitals, in addition to other outpatient clinics and imaging facilities. So this product represents protection, and Smart Lead is going to be the next generation invention in radiation safety. Thank you. Go ahead.
I didn't quite see the difference since the shots came out so quick. But what are the key differences between the old design and the new one? Is it way less? Is it better contour?
So that's a good question. It's not going to be lighter because it has to be heavy to protect from radiation. The unique thing about our product, it's going to be ergonomically designed, so the design is going to be different. Which kind of like will make the weight distribution different across the body parts, and also the technology. So the technology will provide real-time feedback to help improve posture. So these are the two unique things. But in terms of weight, it's going to be the same.
Are you aware of any competitors that might be working on the same problem?
That's a good question. So our competitor, they have the typical apron lead, which is heavy and not ergonomic. So that's what's in the market now. We are not aware of any other competitor that are working to adjust it. They made a long way in terms of the weight, but I think we are currently at the lightest weight without compromising radiation safety. But in terms of posture and real-time feedback, it's not in the market yet.
And how do you know that repositioning the weight and so on is going to lead to significantly better outcomes in terms of physicians and also patient safety?
That's a good question. So there are studies about ergonomic for like surgeons or physicians who are doing procedure while they are wearing the current leads. And they compare them to physicians with the same specialty who don't wear them, and they find that they have more missing works of days and more disabilities. So there are already like a strong data that supports difference between people who wear it versus not. So I think it will, since we have the data, we need to test it and see. But I think that's going to be promising based on all the tests that are done.
So I've worn these vests before, so I understand the issue. They last forever, and because they're very heavy duty. That means that you've got a one-time sales, and whoever has these garments already, of course, is thinking that they made a long-term investment. Are you confident that you're going to be able to actually get them to discard very usable old vests for your new vest, that it's going to give that much extra comfort?
That's a good question. When we did our customer reviews, across all different specialty like physicians or even technicians who have to use it, it's one of the most hated garment because it's really heavy. I use them myself. So I'm confident that we will have like a real market. They last long, I agree with you, but they have to test them every year for radiation safety. They last for a couple of years, but they don't last for year long. Thank you.
What a great start. All right. Our second presenter. Are you ready?
Yes.
MD to me.
Hi, everyone. We are MD2Me, and our mission is to take back control of high blood pressure. It's estimated that there's 100 million people walking around the United States with high blood pressure, and only half of these people have their disease under control. This results in over 1,000 deaths per day due to high blood pressure-related complications which are otherwise preventable. In 2015, Americans made 55 million visits to their primary care providers for hypertension-related issues. Now, after being diagnosed, these patients are returned home with either new lifestyle changes or medications which are difficult to adjust to, and they often struggle for months or years to gain control of this disease. At MD2Me, we have developed a solution which couples an Internet of Things-enabled blood pressure cuff with an online app-based platform to provide real-time blood pressure data, which will be monitored by a trained physician at MD2Me. The data will also be made available to the patients as well as their primary care providers to help them adjust dosing and detect early warning signs of adverse events before they occur. We have developed a team of highly trained medical professionals and scientists at the Mayo Clinic who are familiar with dealing with this patient population and big data analytics. We will create value for insurance companies in the form of cost savings by reducing trips to the office as well as hospitalizations and visits to the ER. On a national scale, we see enormous potential for cost savings, but also on a hospital-to-hospital basis, we see potential for cost savings. At the Mayo Clinic alone, which sees 30,000 patients per year for hypertension at a cost of $200 per visit, we see that even a 50% reduction in office visits would result in significant cost savings. So, join us in taking control of high blood pressure and continuing to fight to make America more healthy. Thank you. No.
Yeah. How are you planning on getting this to patients? Is this through the physician or directly?
Yeah, so the way that we envision setting it up is that we would like to start with companies that insure their own employees, such as Mayo. And so when they're referred to a physician within that health system, they would be seen by a hypertension specialist on their first visit, and then they would leave the door with the hardware as well as education on the app and how to use it.
Could you explain a little bit more about the advantage of this new technology? I know a lot of hypertension patients are asked to measure their blood pressure at home daily, and I know there are wireless options currently available.
Yeah, so I'm not a clinician myself, but I was surprised when I was talking with Dr. El-Sherbaini on our team, who is a hypertension specialist, and he was telling me he sends his patients home after the initial consult with a pen and paper and a manual blood pressure cuff and says, okay, record ideally once daily, but twice a week is usually the best they do, and then return to me in 3 weeks or a month with those readings, and we'll review them together. So the advantage we would provide here is real-time data, if daily measurements or twice daily measurements, which can be directly translated to not only our team that is monitoring that, but the primary care provider as well.
How many physicians have you talked to that said that they would really get behind this and push it within, say, the Mayo system?
Yeah, so probably no physician operating in the Mayo Health System or any other health system would want to actively participate in this in the form of reviewing the data. They can't bill for such a service, so they will not spend extra time outside of their clinic hours doing such a thing. That's why we add value in this with our team, which will monitor the patients in the background and only alert the physician and request an office visit when we feel it's necessary and it meets guideline regulations.
So who's paying for this?
So we would like to start with companies that are self-insuring their employees. So it would be the payer side of things that would be paying for this service in the form of monitoring those enlisted in their programs.
If you're only alerting the primary care doc when something is maybe out of range, how will you get information from the app to the primary care doc for tracking?
So this would all be facing, first and foremost, the patient, our team, as well as the primary care physician, and delivered in such a way that it would be easily interpreted by them. So all it would be was a simple ping, and it would say, hey, your patient may need additional attention. Here's the metrics that we found that need reviewing.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, our next presenter, Onwards.
Hi there, my name is Kieran Leong, and I'm one of the founders of Onwards. And our goal at Onwards is to improve survival from respiratory failure. So this is the face of respiratory failure in America today. Patients require a breathing tube, a ventilator to stay alive. I want to talk specifically about acute respiratory distress syndrome, a lethal form of respiratory failure. It has about a 50% mortality rate and costs the U.S. about $9 to $16 billion per year. A specific proning therapy exists out there called proning, which has been shown to decrease mortality in people with ARDS by half. And because of this strong literature, in 2017, all the major critical care societies in the United States and abroad have now strongly recommended proning for patients with ARDS. Despite this, adoption of proning is really poor. Only about 10 to 30% of patients end up getting this life-sustaining therapy. And that's due to issues of awareness and safety concerns, both for staff and for patients, as well as the resources associated with the current solutions. So the current solutions right now are not very satisfying. Manual proning requires about 6 to 8 people to turn patients. Very resource intensive, high risk for staff and patient injury. A rotoprone bed exists to do this automatically, but this costs about $1,300 per day, and this is not widely available to most hospitals due to the cost. We imagine a solution that is a single-use, disposable solution that is compatible with current beds and is designed to reduce the effort required to prone therapy in order to decrease or increase adoption of this life-sustaining therapy. We have an attractive business model based on compelling hospital savings that has been shown already to reduce the ICU length of stay. And we imagine an average sell price of $4,000 with attractive margins, which comes out to a potential market of about $770 million. This is our team, myself, a critical care physician, Amy, an intensive care nurse, and 2 engineers that are well equipped to help bring this product to market.
So you said the device is disposable. It's $4,000 per unit?
Yes.
And requires 2 people?
2 to 4 people. So we did some human testing that showed that we're able to decrease the force. It kind of depends on how big the patient is to begin with, but at least by half. So if we typically say 6 to 8 people, we're talking kind of 2 to 4 is what we're imagining.
Could you speak a little bit more as to why you chose this sort of value-based pricing, so to speak, where you're sharing with the hospital? And also, how would you administer that?
So currently there's no code out there to exist. Proning is not a medical device or a procedure. So to kind of head down that pathway would require applying for a code to perform this procedure, which is actually performed by nurses and not physicians. So given that there is already compelling data to show that this decreases mortality and decreases the amount of time on a ventilator by 4 days, we kind of chose that as the marker to kind of go after, the method to pay for it. And especially given that ICU days are especially expensive, we felt that it was a reasonable kind of cost-sharing mechanism to go after.
So when I looked at your pictures, I was thinking, this is so simple. Why hasn't somebody done it before? And what occurs to me is the reason why there's so many people involved is that there's so much care being given to every individual spot on the patient. How do you get around that?
That's a great question. So we got design input not just from, unfortunately, Amy's on our team, but other ICU nurses and respiratory therapists who actually do this procedure. And so our design mainly, we want to just not rotate people, but do it safely. So we put patients within this inflatable device that encases them and prevents movement of required lines and breathing tubes, with also straps on the inside to help accommodate for those safety concerns. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Renogen.
Hi everyone, I'm Ibrahim from Renogen. So this is the sad story of dialysis in America today. 500,000 dialysis patients, like John here, have to spend 16 hours every week to receive a therapy, otherwise productive time. But there is another alternative. There is peritoneal dialysis. This is Joanne here, for instance, an actual PD patient who lives in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, but she's able to perform the therapy by herself. And only 10% of dialysis patients actually have access to this therapy today. And the reason is because doctors are scared of peritonitis. It's an infection of the cavity where the therapy occurs. And when patients that have this condition don't die, they either have the therapy fail on them or they have to perform expensive surgeries to replace their catheters. And a major contributing factor to peritonitis is actually patients contaminating their tubing while performing the therapy. That's why at Renogen, we've developed a Safe Connect device that eliminates touch contamination and in the process significantly reduces infection. We'll be selling our device as a single-use disposable. At full market penetration, it's a $1.4 billion market. And this is important now than ever before because CMS, who is the payer that matters when it comes to dialysis, is unhappy with the current situation. They want 50% of patients to be on home dialysis by 2025. And we need better prevention strategies to be able to do that. This is our team. I might be biased, but I don't see any better team to take this to market than this. Thank you.
Who do you envision buying this, the patient or the hospital system? Or?
So the dialysis providers, the peritoneal dialysis clinics, will be the one paying for this.
One of the pushes is to use peritoneal dialysis also for other conditions such as heart failure, so not just end-stage renal. Do you anticipate having an impact on the market size due to those trends?
We are currently not thinking about that seriously. We just want to go with the wave of the desire for payers and providers to get more patients on home dialysis.
This seems like one part of a more elaborate set of equipment, and I'd be surprised if the people that actually have the actual dialysis units aren't involved with something like this. Do you know what your competition's going to be in this field?
So to that, we're exploring different market entry strategies. We're currently in talks with Baxter and Nipro, but more importantly, we are trying to make sure that we can get to market even without their partnership. So we're designing those components in such a way that they will work with existing devices, even if we don't get those partnerships.
Is there any IP that you can get around this?
Oh, yes. So we have a provisional filed, and we are very different from most of the other technologies that will have tried to do this.
I would assume your margins are pretty high on this product, but how do you envision, with such a low price point, how do you envision making money with logistics costs probably taking up a significant portion of the profit?
I might not have mentioned before, but this is a device that will have to be used every day by the patient, 365 days in a year. It's about $3,000 in a year eventually. And if it gets sold, there's already a distribution network that dialysis providers use for home dialysis, and we intend to take advantage of that network.
What percentage is this $10 a day compared to the equipment that they're bringing home?
So there are multiple consumables that the patients have to use. One of them is a $35 unit. There's another $5 cap that you have to change every day. So it's really a small percentage in comparison to all the consumables that they already use.
Thank you.
It's been great having everybody on time. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, Snow Labs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Fisher, and I'm here to talk to you about Snow Labs. This is our team. We're 3 MBA students, part of the MidCore program here, and our sponsor, Dr. Yuk Sham, came up with this idea to help combat the growing threat of antibiotic resistance around the world. So currently, there are over 23,000 deaths and over 2 million illnesses related to antibacterial resistance in the U.S. every single year, and the problem's only growing. The CDC has said that we are entering a post-antibiotic era, and there are a ton of different populations out there that are at high risk. So our main focus, the CDC has laid out 4 key areas to consider in terms of defeating this issue. And we're going to focus on 3 out of those 4. So that's going to be better tracking of data, new diagnostic tests, and better antibiotic stewardship. So the model that we have proposed so far is to coordinate efforts with hospitals, clinics, and labs to run, take a culture from a patient, using that sample, run mass spec on it, and analyze the proteins that are in there. And from there, be able to identify the specific enzymes that are causing resistance and provide a better result to a provider on what's causing the resistance and what specific type of combination antibiotic therapy will help them get around that. And the goal will be to improve patient outcomes, lower costs, and most importantly, reduce the chance of developing antibiotic resistance. In terms of proposed revenue streams, we think we can do this through direct billing, but we also see there could be huge benefits to partnering with public health institutions, government, military contracts, and also partnering with other diagnostic firms. And so with that, we have a whole bunch of other stuff we're looking to do over the next couple of months, and this is where you can all help. Thank you.
Are you basically using profiling methods that have been developed for microbiome?
Yeah, so it'd be similar. So from my understanding of this, so like you've heard of like metagenomics, this is using proteomics.
And so the idea is that as that library has been developing over the past couple of years, we can now better spot specific enzymes. That beta-lactamase is kind of what we're primarily focused on in terms of being able to say, yes, this is the beta-lactamase that's being produced by the bacteria, and we can then take currently approved FDA medication and combine that with a lower level, less intense, less toxic antibiotic for someone to take, which isn't going to take out all the bacteria in the good bacteria in their body and just leave the resistant bacteria left. So that's the rough idea.
Any testing of fungi, which are also becoming resistant to?
That's absolutely an area that we want to look into. So agriculture, I mean, one of the issues behind all this is that we're pumping antibiotics into the animals that we end up eating. And so we also think there could be a possible way to look into ag. And people are looking into metaproteomics for studying the oceans, for soil, for a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of different avenues that we could take this eventually.
How is your team the best to do this?
Well, I think so far, Dr. Sham, he's the one who we're kind of relying on for a lot of the science. We barely knew any of this. We're MBA students, part-time, learning about all this over the past couple of months. But I think with him, I mean, he is a microbiologist, understands, I think he does genetic informatics and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be working with him, also with his graduate students who understand this pretty well. And in terms of our perspective, we're passionate about the healthcare industry. We want to stay in this area, and we think this is a place for us to dedicate our time and effort to.
You've almost got too much on your plate. I see the probable failure coming from being so distracted by all the markets that you're not focusing on one market. Do you have your first minimal viable product or target?
Well, I would say the target right now is going to be a clinically applied application for folks that are at high risk. So that's where we think we can make the most impact. But we're kind of keeping our options open as we learn more about this.
Yeah. It's a large scale, so we're trying to focus on immune suppressed patients for now.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about how you're going to get insurance to pay for this?
Well, we think what we can do, especially for patients who are suffering from severe bacterial infections, if we can prove that, yes, we can help them overcome resistance and not stay in the hospital longer than they need to be, and also there's also stewardship efforts going on in hospitals all over the place, that's where we're going to pitch it to them on.
Okay, next up, medical dynamics.
Hello, everyone. I'm Arash Mahnam. I'm from Medical Dynamics. Imagine that you have hard time to generate a speech. How hard you try, still people around you don't understand you. You might force to change your job. You might force to change your daily life. This is a daily life situation of people with spasmodic dysphonia. So let's talk about how we generate a speech. We use our vocal cord, we open them, close them, and by passing the air through them, we can generate a speech. People with SD, they lose the control of their vocal cord. So it's really hard for them to speak. We don't know why it happens. We don't know how it happens. We only know that it starts during the midlife and it stays forever. There is no cure. The only thing is Botox, which doesn't work on half of the population. What we found is that if we change the sensory information that goes to the brain by just applying the vibration to the neck, we are able to improve their voice quality. We have with just acute amount of vibration for 30 minutes. Based on this data, we started to create a collar. So we designed a collar that makes this technology portable for the people, and they can use it for a daily life. So we started from 5 years ago. We proved that it's working. Now we have the first generation of the device. Our goal is to start the second generation and have it on December. We are going to other segments, other diseases too, and then launch the device in 2021. Our market assessment is that, so we are estimating that we have around $350 million for spasmodic dysphonia. But the future direction of this is that we can apply it on cervical dystonia, which have a $1 billion market, and on stroke people, on people with Parkinson's diseases, and on MS. In general, our goal is to have a portable, non-invasive application that people can take it around and use it as a as a way to get better treatment and have the neurorehabilitation. Thank you.
So you said the device is vibrotactile.
Vibrotactile.
So it's actually little.
So it vibrates the muscle, and then it vibrates the sensory, basically receptors that are in the laryngeal muscles, and then information goes to the brain. There's some change in the brain, and then their voice quality improves.
Okay. But at the moment, you're designing basically a collar.
A collar. Yeah. So we put the vibrator in that collar. We have a microphone in it, so when the person starts to speak, the collar catches the speak, and then we have the basic activation of the vibration. Yeah. So it's for a daily usage. They can take it off. They can wash it. They can run. They can do exercises. So they can do everything that they have. We have the same thing for people with cervical dystonia, which they have like a tilted neck, and then we have vibration, and then they have like a normal posture. So it can be applied on other diseases too.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the clinical trials that you're currently running?
So we have evidence that it works on acute, only 30 minutes. Now we have a clinical trial. We are testing the long-term effect for 3 months. So we are giving them this vibration, giving the patients this vibration. They take it home. They have in-home training, and then they come to the lab at the baseline, after 6 weeks, after 11 weeks, for us to check what is the effect for the long term. We know it's working on the short term, but we want to know the long term.
So is your model to take and go to customer directly or through the physician?
So both. We have a really good connection with National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association. Last week, I spoke with more than 30 patients. We have a survey for 140 patients. 90% of them are willing to test such a device, because for around 20,000 of these people, there is nothing. They don't have any solution, and our estimate is that around 10,000 of them are willing to buy it without any reimbursement.
What is the incidence of SD?
So it's a rare disease. There are only 50,000 people that they have SD in US, which we understand that, but the other part is that there is no research, currently no research on them, so they have nothing. So this is the only solution that we are providing.
So what's the cost of this instrument, and insurance presumably will pay for it, right?
Yes, because the interesting part is that for Botox, usually they don't reimburse the Botox, but now they are reimbursing the Botox. Our plan is to have it reimbursed from the insurance. The cost is around $10,000, but it will last for at least 3 or 4 years, and then they need to rebuy it again. But the insurance is going to pay 80% of it. Right now we are working with the insurance for the reimbursement plan and everything.
Who's on your team?
So we have a team of engineers, otolaryngologists, speech pathologists. So we have a team of different disciplines to understand the needs and generate something that is helpful. And we have help from apparel designers, because it should look nice. That's the main part of it. Thank you.
Okay, for those in the audience, if you have your brochure, there is an update. So the current name is Ascension. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Calvin, and I'm with Ascension Medical Devices, where we are developing innovative solutions for transgender health. We know that gender-affirming care drops suicidality from 40% to 1.8%. One of the care options for transgender women is a procedure known as vaginoplasty, or the surgical creation of a vaginal canal. Unfortunately, complication rates with vaginoplasty are around 50%, and it costs over $25,000 to treat these complications. Archaic standards of care are part of the problem. We pack the new vagina with gauze, and we leave it there for 5 days. Once it's removed, the patient is required to dilate 3 times a day for 30 minutes at a time for the first 3 months. Our device removes the burden of compliance barriers for these patients, and it eliminates the severe complications associated. Our single-use flushing stent is placed in the vagina during the procedure. It is replaced once a month for the first 90 days with a larger size to replicate dilation without the high burdens of compliance. Why is now a good time to get into this market? The American Society of Plastic Surgeons have published data showing that the vaginoplasty market is growing at 41%. There were 300,000 vaginoplasties worldwide last year with a market of $1.5 billion. Our device will be purchased by the hospital. We'll sell a kit of 3 for $5,000. We should have gross margins over 85%. Our team is experienced. We have a plastic surgeon on our team and 2 very intelligent engineers, if I do say so myself. And we are very excited to bring this device to an underserved population. Questions?
So first of all, I'm astonished at the market size, of course. So there's going to be one treatment per individual, I guess, with this stent.
Correct.
And I didn't get to see the market size of that, but the first thing I'm thinking, of course, is just the marketing of it. And that's foreign territory for many of us.
So marketing, we are reaching out to plastic surgeons. I personally have interviewed over 50 surgeons that do this procedure. So plastic surgeons, urinary reconstructive surgeons, and urogynecologists, and they're all looking for something in this space. Their options are limited and they're not happy with the results they're getting. We're also reaching out to patients who have had this procedure done in the past and patients who are looking to have this procedure done in the future because they're really informed and they're looking for the best care possible. This is an expensive procedure in the United States that costs over $90,000 to get this. You want this to go well, you only want to do it once.
How many clinicians are in the United States that would potentially use your product?
Right now, there are 53 surgeons in the United States that perform vaginoplasties, and there are about 125 worldwide. I've met most of them. I went to the World Conference for Transgender Health in Argentina, and I've spoken to most of them. They're all looking for something like this. So I can personally reach them, but if I had a sales team, it would go even better.
Is any country in the world sort of more advanced at this than the U.S.? Is Europe, for instance, would that be?
Almost everyone is better at this than we are. We have taken a while to get on board. Argentina actually is leading the world when it comes to transgender rights and transgender healthcare. Thailand does way more procedures than we do. Europe is leading. They have conferences every year training new people how to do this. Belgium has a fellowship. We are just now coming up with a fellowship for the United States.
So do you have a prototype?
I do. We have a prototype. We actually did our first cadaver study on Wednesday, and it went really well. So we're looking forward to doing more.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Galilea Technologies.
Hi everyone, my name's Adi. I'm one of the co-founders of Galilea Technologies, where we try to bring motion at the speed of thought through the Galileo chair. Now, imagine you woke up one day and you're not able to walk anymore. You're not able to do anything easily. You have to use a joystick. Everything's artificial. Or you have to blow into a straw just to move around to make your breakfast. Well, that's true for about 2 million people every single year, and 2 million new people every single year. And of those people, there's a small subset that require a power wheelchair. And assisting them, providing them power wheelchairs is an almost $5 billion market. Yet, all of those solutions aren't intuitive, they're not easy. Either you blow into a straw, you lean on a head array, or you have to use a joystick. Nothing's natural. And that's why we invented the Galileo chair. The Galileo chair is a hands-free device that allows you to move around easily and naturally by measuring your brain waves and your head movement so we can figure out when you want to go somewhere, where you want to go, and how you want to get there. So it works completely seamlessly using a power wheelchair just to integrate everything and make sure it all works perfectly, intuitively, and naturally. So how are we going to do this? We plan to partner with payers and insurance to provide a higher quality of life to all disabled patients who have a power wheelchair. First, through software licensing, then through an attachment directly to a power wheelchair, and then finally working directly with wheelchair manufacturers to create a fully integrated product. So Why now? Well, the technology we use, some advanced machine learning techniques, didn't exist 10 years ago. So this is the first time technology like this has even been possible. Second, in the brain-computer interface research, there's not a lot of good research tools. We plan to open source our technology so more research can happen faster. And finally, extensibility. All of our algorithms and research are cross-applicable to other areas, like therapy, so we can understand how to treat patients better and provide them with a better quality of life. Here's our team. We're a couple of undergraduates at the University of Minnesota with experience in biophysics, computer engineering, computer science, as well as working in many tech industries and biomedical industries. Thank you.
Just two quick questions. Was the name Hawking Chair taken? Speak.
No, we just started with Galileo Chair because of Galileo.
All right. Secondly, how much training does an average person need in order to be able to manipulate the chair?
Sure. We start off with just a 10-minute training session right now, and we have our first MVP ready. But we're planning to have this, so we need as little time as possible to get someone up and running, and then it continues to learn so the experience improves.
So how accurate is it?
Well, right now we have a head orientation control movement that is basically 100% accurate, and our major classifier that we're working on right now is getting up to a 77% classification, and we're prepared to release it until we get that 99%.
You mentioned it's a small subset of wheelchair users who have this issue. What size would that be, roughly?
Sure. Well, there's about 3 million power wheelchairs bought annually. That's partially new wheelchair users as well as people replacing their wheelchairs, which happens by insurance every 5 years.
And so they're all having problems using the current joystick, the 3 million, or it's a subset of that?
It would be a subset of that. We've done a lot of user interviews, and it seems like there are a lot of people who really would love to use this technology.
And you don't know how many, though.
Sorry. We don't have a concrete number because it's difficult based on the severity of a condition and how much insurance is going to define as necessary versus just usable. We know that our users don't have huge amounts of budgets to buy this technology, so it really comes down to what insurance will offer.
So I guess the big question that we're trying to get at is, who's giving you the information that there's a real need out there? That's what we're asking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've done several user studies, and we found that almost everyone loves the chair. It provides a higher quality of life, which makes life more easier, movable, and natural. We still need to conduct a study to figure out how much of an addressable market there is. However, we've estimated it at around 1 in 10. Yeah.
How confident are you that you're going to get to 99% accuracy with?
We're absolutely confident. One of our co-founders, Stefan, he's been a deep learning researcher at both Facebook and Google, and we're confident we can get this technology to work. And if we can't, there's plenty of other engineering solutions, such as adding on sensors to the power chair, adding on additional data. That means that we will almost certainly be able to get to that accuracy where we can ensure safety.
Second to last of the junior anglers.
Where's the...
Oh,
here it is.
You ready?
We are ready.
Okay, Rise.
Hi, I'm Amy Hilscher, and I'm one of the founders here at Rise. Over 14 million older adults are admitted to the hospital each year in the United States, and 85% of that time is spent lying in bed. But the problem is bed rest is toxic. And starting on day 1, your muscles begin to atrophy. You get a lot weaker. It affects almost every body system that you have. So there's a lot of studies out there showing the benefits of physical activity and early mobility within the hospital setting. And there's patients out there suffering from what's known as hospital-acquired disabilities. And for those patients, such as perhaps Betty, they are not back to baseline at 1 year, or 50% are not back to baseline at 1 year. And despite these studies, there's a lot of barriers. Staff just don't have time, and there's a lot of other constraints within the hospital setting to address these needs. Our solution is readily available right at the bedside. We have a chair component and we have a digital interface that provides customization for the patient, both based on their size and their needs, and provides interaction, real-time feedback, and a compelling interactive component. And for providers, therapists, doctors, there's a digital and data component on the back end that they can provide input into and set customizations for what they would like their patients to do. So why now? The American Gerontological Society recently put out a call for increased mobility outcome tracking within the hospital setting. And our patients are getting older, they're getting sicker within these settings, and hospital care is moving towards bundled payments and value-based care, and they're starting to pay attention more to mobility. So our value proposition is clear for both the hospital and the patient. For the hospital, we're focusing really on decreasing that length of stay, decreasing staff injury, and for the patients, we are looking to really promote that function, their independence, and getting them back into that home environment. Our business model focuses on that chair component, but also that digital interface, and that would be something based on a subscription model, again, looking towards that value with the reduced length of stay. We have a committed team of both healthcare and engineer components to our team, and we are excited to bring this forward for patients like Betty.
Quick question. Yeah. So the solution is the chair with the monitor and
yes,
the handrails. So how does that exactly translate into exercise?
Yeah, so the main thing we focus on, so one of the big components is doing like a sit to stand, because you lose your weight bearing muscles the most, and the biggest ones are your legs. So we really wanted to help assist that, provide a stable environment with the rails. So the chair itself can adjust higher and lower. Talking with PTs, that's really something they really want. They don't have that adjustability. And then we have the bars that can also adjust to the proper height and provide that safety. And then sensor components as well that will provide that tracking.
Could this maybe be paid under a physical therapy session?
It could potentially, depending on the environment. Some physical therapy is bundled within the existing DRGs, but there definitely could be showing a benefit to the insurance companies and maybe potentially seeking out additional funding sources for payment.
So mostly the hospitals will be are the providers are the ones providing the chair?
Yes. They already have a budget for hospital chairs currently existing, and they replace those at routine intervals as they start to break down. So we just kind of tap into those existing systems or new remodels too.
And how are you going to try to show the decrease in length and stay?
To go to market, we would not require clinical trials through the FDA, but we would hope to do post-FDA clinical trials for that marketing component. And based on the trials that are currently being done on exercise and mobility, we're kind of building off of some of that data to then set a trial after the fact.
So I see positives and negatives. One of them, it sounded like you would need fewer healthcare professionals with patients. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it seems dubious to me that you could take the chance that someone wouldn't have a fall regardless of how many rails there are on this, mm-hmm. and that the insurance costs would be out of sight. Are you thinking of this just in the hospital itself and certainly not at home, or are you thinking at home?
So our first market we're looking at is in the hospital setting because there's existing payment structures there. We had considered an option for a prescription at home or for that could be assisted living or nursing home components as well. The reduction in staff component, PTs right now are not seeing 30% of their patients that are on their list anyways. And so, and for older people, later in the evening is oftentimes when they come by and they're tired and they don't want to exercise at that point. So typically they just go, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, or they move on to someone else because they just have so many people in their docket. So if they can provide kind of checking in on their patients on the back end and get a list of 20, 30 patients, it'll free up their time to focus on those people who really need that intense rehab. All right, thank you.
All right. Still. Yep. All right.
Okay, Scilarc Labs.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Logan Grotto. I'm a co-founder at Scilarc Labs, where we're working to build the next generation of hearing aid technology. Currently, there are 35 million adults in the United States with hearing loss, but less than a quarter of them are actually served by the traditional model. Why? Well, the traditional hearing aid model is outdated, inconvenient, and expensive. To hear from a user, going back and forth to the audiologist is a pain. I just want my hearing aids to work for me. As we've been hearing, there's a lot of frustration out there, and this needs to change. Why now? Well, pending deregulation from the FDA means hearing aids will be able to be sold over the counter by 2020, meaning this space is ripe for disruption. At Skylark Labs, we're working to build an AI-guided, self-tuning hearing device platform, one that will pair patented artificial intelligence algorithms with Bluetooth-enabled devices to learn your sound profile quickly and easily. We will create individualized hearing devices that just work. Why us? Well, I'm a PhD here at Minnesota, and I specialize in machine learning for medical devices. My co-founders, Ian and Doug, are marketing and medical device industry experts, and between the three of us, we have the experience and know-how to make this happen. We plan to license our platform directly to manufacturers, helping them capture more of this unserved market. If our technology can help capture just 5% of the 27 million unserved, we're looking at a market size of 1.3 million people. And at $100 per unit licensing fee, that translates to $130 million in revenue. To close, I'll leave you with this quote from an industry expert. What the industry needs is personalized, user-driven adjustability at a lower cost to allow for customized fits without the need for the trip to the audiologist. Questions?
So what IP do you have around this?
So we have some IP with the University of Minnesota, and we think it's pretty strong. Okay. There's a few other companies that we've seen that are working in the self-fitting space, but really the big companies, the big five, they're kind of stuck when the audiologist controlled channel because that's where they make all their money. And it's going to be very difficult for them to actually pivot into the over-the-counter space. And so it's just opening the doors to people just coming in and selling whatever they can. In order to make that viable, people are going to need our technology to be able to sell these and for them to work.
How far along are you on the technology?
On the technology? So actually the algorithm, I've written most of it already. We've been working in the spinal cord stimulation space. We've pivoted to hearing aids as it's a larger market, and it's being deregulated. So the technology is quite far along. We need to finish pairing it with a hearing aid to have a prototype, and we'll begin testing soon.
Sorry if I missed it, but do the audiologists currently get to bill for those tuning sessions?
Yeah, audiologists do currently bill for those tuning sessions, but from audiologists we've spoken to, that's not a big pain point for them. Really, audiologists, they make about 80% of their income from the sale of these hearing aids. And so if we can pivot away from that, and so instead of selling these $4,400 devices on average for a pair, if in the over-the-counter space we can sell these for $1,000 and we're taking $100 of that, that'll just completely change the game.
What do you see for insurance coverage of these devices?
There's pretty much nothing. Medicare, I think, covers like a few $100s, but for the most part, there's pretty much no insurance coverage for hearing aids. So if you decided you want a hearing aid today, you'd have to pay out of pocket. They're very expensive, and that's why a lot of people don't get them.
So if I understand this right, you're doing for ears what you get these reader glasses for at Walgreens or CVS pharmacies, and that you'll have a little booth that you can go into?
No booth.
Yeah. No booth even.
Yeah, so we envision our devices, you could buy them on Amazon, you can go in and buy them at CVS, but you'll have to pair it with your smartphone, and you basically just go through some quick tests. You're basically telling it, this sounds good to me, or this doesn't. That simple. And through that interaction, in the course of 5 to 10 minutes, we'll learn what you prefer. Then you go out into the real world, you're out here, you're in the restaurant, and you can just it keeps learning from you. So instead of this audiologist setting your settings for you, it's going to learn from you what you like and what works for you.
So one more question, since I have hearing aids that I don't wear. I'm very aware, number one, that I want to hear a lot of stuff, but more importantly for you is that the way the hearing aids fit determines actually on how well you hear various things. So how do you get around that?
So you're talking about the physical fit?
Yes.
So the physical fit, Physical fit is absolutely difficult, and so for the more severe cases, you need that custom fit. But for a lot of the people with mild to moderate hearing loss, the over-the-counter generic solution does work for them in terms of the physical fit. It's the programmatic fit, the tuning that we can do. And also, we would love to talk to you if you don't mind.
Well, thank you for the first session. While we close down for a minute and the Walleyes, please go up. Oh, we have, how long are we going to wait? 10 minutes? You have time for a 10-minute break? 20-minute break. We have a 20-minute break. This is a networking opportunity. There's refreshments outside. Thank you for all of the presenters. Let's please give them a round of applause. For the professionals, I think you've got your work cut out. I think those junior anglers did a fantastic job. Meg, come on down. We have room for you and a hat.
I can take you guys back to the other room.
Of course. I know, I'm sorry I had to be late. It made me think of it as... I know, I made it earlier than I thought I was going to. That's not so I got to at least see a few of them. What are they presenting?
Okay, let's do a 2-minute warning. Please come on down. The first company, can you please come on down if you haven't yet?
We'll find out soon.
What's that?
So, we do...
Okay,
we do Q&A.
not quite yet. Well, Amanda's... Oh, that's right. So Amanda's doing double duty. All right, let's see here. Hold on. You go by Bob or Robert? I'm not going to introduce it, but I was trying to make sure I knew. I let people introduce themselves. That way I'm not wrong. All right, well, Okay, so as we get ready, we're shifting to the professional division. There's a couple of key concepts. So the junior anglers, some of those teams, they started ideating 3 months ago. So we have really early stage companies to Skylark Labs that had actually pitched once before, but they continued to iterate on their project. For the professionals, these are typically businesses with traction, or they are a serial entrepreneur putting their new idea to the test today. We have one additional Walleye. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Meg Stoyer. Sorry I couldn't be here earlier, but snuck in for most of the last round, so some really inspirational companies. I work with Greater MSP, the Regional Economic Development Partnership here in Minneapolis-St. Paul, so we cover 15 counties. I specifically manage a scope of work called Forge North, supporting entrepreneurs and innovators in the region. So excited to be here today.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks for coming. All right. So, if we are ready to go, are we not? Oh, is the microphone not working? Okay, hold on. Let's sort this out. We need to be on, I think. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Okay. All right. Now I realize what the biggest issue is.
We don't have Zach.
Amanda is still in the room with the judges deliberating. All right. So, Zach. Oh, they're 5 minutes to be done? Well, if we can just flip this over to the presentation, I think we're good to go. Are we ready? And are you ready with your timer? All right, Zach's going to get the timer. Do you have the check clicker? Make sure the clicker works.
All right.
Make sure it works before you
It
set the
is.
timer. Once Zach sets the timer up, you're ready to go. And this is Medibiotics.
Welcome. My name is Bob Connor with Medibiotics. And approximately over 1 million people in the U.S. have epileptic seizures, which are not well controlled by medication. There's evidence in the medical literature that analysis of EEG data can provide detection or prediction of epileptic seizures. Focus groups have shown that people with epilepsy would welcome the chance to purchase a wearable device that's relatively unobtrusive if it could give them a heads up that a seizure may be coming. Part of the problem of it is the lack of prediction, the uncertainty of the seizure, which lowers their quality of life. Medibiotic's solution is to incorporate EEG sensors into eyewear. These would be dry EEG sensors. Currently, the sensors which are used to detect or predict an epileptic seizure would be an array of wet EEG sensors, but they would not be something you'd want to wear around in public. We currently, with our device, have been able to use thought patterns to toggle a binary switch. We have not yet used it for epilepsy, but we're hoping that the convergence of documentation of EEG sensors and our device will allow that. This is not our device. This is our device, a patented device with the sensors being incorporated in a curved eyewear frame. As I mentioned, thus far it's been used to toggle a binary switch by changes in thought. We have a very innovative team. We have strong IP, and I have been a PI on federally funded grants. Why now? There is a convergence of dry EEG sensor, wearable technology, and pattern recognition, and these three are converging, and we think it'll be a good product. Questions welcome.
Robert, tell me a little bit more about where you need to go. What's the next major step in the development effort?
One of the challenging areas is how to have a sensor be incorporated into an eyewear frame in a relatively unobtrusive way to maintain good contact with an area of the head that doesn't have hair. And so if you look at a traditional eyewear frame, it's not designed to contact the forehead. So we're working on a curvature of the frame, which we have patented, and experimenting with either a spring-based or a foam-based to hold the dry EEG sensor against the head. So that's the challenge. We're currently having an engineering team working on that, and that's sort of the value that we would add that no one else is doing at this time.
Is this something you're going to take to the regulatory path where you're trying to get 510K approval, or how do you intend to market this?
If we claim to address epilepsy, we would definitely have to go a regulatory path and probably 510K. It could be, the cost of it could be sufficiently low so a person would be willing to pay for it even without insurance coverage. There have been focus groups of people with epilepsy who have expressed a desire for a device like this if it was in the $500 to $1,000 range.
And can you talk a little bit more about the market and who exactly you would be targeting with this? If it's older people, younger people, who's the ideal market for this?
The market would be, start with people who have epilepsy whose seizures are not well controlled by medication. And in the U.S. alone, that's around 1 million people. And if you look at who among that population would currently wear glasses or be willing to wear glasses. In terms of wearables, that's not too obtrusive. People have worn glasses for a long time. If we targeted 5% of that million, you may not be able to read this, but at least I had some financial scenarios achieving 5% of the million people whose seizures are not well controlled by medication.
And does activity affect the performance of this?
That would be an empirical issue. At least there's less motion occurring on the head, for example, than on wrist-worn devices. Apple and others have tried to incorporate spectroscopy, and the wrist moves a great deal. The head also moves, but if the glasses fit snugly, and if you have some sort of compressive element like a spring or foam or an inflatable member to gently hold, the key would be gently. You wouldn't want it to be protruding. Then you could control for motion.
Well, great. Thank you very much. All right, we have Phenomics Sciences.
Good afternoon. My name is Ross Higgins. I'm Chief Operating Officer from Phenomics Sciences. Phenomics Sciences is a Mayo Clinic startup founded by 2 NIH-funded physician researchers at the Mayo Clinic focused in obesity. And we'll be bringing forward the first precision medicine multi-omics solution to treat obesity. It might be startling for some of you to realize that over 40% of the United States adult population meets the criteria for obesity. This number grows every year. And obesity is the leading cause of a number of other diseases and comorbidities, including type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, among others, of which drives over $480 billion of direct healthcare cost each year. Layer in the indirect cost, and you're speaking in trillions. And the problem with this crisis is that most of the FDA-approved interventions for obesity are not very effective. We have a problem with the rule of the thirds. Basically, a third of the patients respond phenomenally well to these FDA-approved interventions, but about 2/3 of the patients don't respond at all, and some even gain weight. And the reason for this is the underlying heterogeneity and the complexity of obesity, and that's exactly the problem we're trying to solve. Using an AI-driven algorithm and a panel of biomarkers exclusively licensed to us from our founders down at the Mayo Clinic, we are seeking to develop the first blood test that will subclassify obesity by its underlying pathophysiology. And what we've identified is 4 phenotypes based on the mechanism that's leading to the weight gain in specific obese individuals that can then be targeted to select an intervention that's particularly tailored to that patient. And the initial clinical data has been highly promising. We've seen a doubling of weight loss and a doubling of overall response rate with FDA-approved interventions. We've put together a strong team, and we're bringing our product forward for beta testing later this year. Thank you for your attention.
Ross, can you describe a little bit more the markers, and are they proteins, or what are you measuring?
So it's going to be a multi-omic panel. We're looking at proteins, peptides, amino acids, as well as DNA. So it's a multivariate array of analytes that we'll be measuring from a blood sample.
And when I was reading the material here, one of the things that came to my mind was, is there any chance that this would change over time as the patient moves through their life cycle?
Absolutely. Yeah, we believe that once an intervention is selected, especially an effective one that targets their primary phenotype, it's very possible that you'll expose a secondary phenotype for that patient, and some patients even have mixed phenotypes that can be targeted with combination therapy. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right, Aurora Concussion Therapy Systems.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Devins, and I'm here to talk to you about Aurora Concussion Therapy Systems, where we're trying to help the brain heal itself faster. There are nearly 2 million concussions every year, and it's estimated that there are another 2 million that don't ever present to the emergency department and aren't diagnosed. And the treatment for concussions hasn't changed since my wife had one about 25 years ago. She was sitting in a dark room. She couldn't move for weeks because she felt so ill. And all of those costs add up to about $11 billion in extra medical expenses every year between lost productivity and extra medical expenses. So, what is a concussion? The pathophysiology of a concussion essentially starts with happy nerve cells with little energizer bunnies in them. You shake your head, and what happens is that all of a sudden the cells stop producing energy because of neurometabolic imbalances that are happening from leaky cell membranes. What happens then, though, is that if you bring in near-infrared light, you're able to restore the aerobic metabolism of the cells. The cells are able to start producing energy and get back to where they are able to heal themselves. This has been shown in mice repeatedly in sham-controlled trials. It's been a profound effect, in the words of one physician I spoke to. We are taking this therapy and scaling it to humans. We're making it so that we're accounting for the changes in anatomy, the cranial thickness across the head. To date, the trials in humans have been with the same energy that's been used in the mice. And we believe that what we will sell is an actual device that we would place in clinics. So why are the team? Why are we the team? We are the team that has the expertise in medical device product development. We're working with a neurologist with expertise in sleep medicine, where he has a lot of TBI patients. And we have a number of activities that we've already completed, an FDA visit, and we're working on an animal study protocol right now. Thank you.
You stated that they would have to wear the helmet in the clinical setting.
Yes.
How often would they have to come in for treatment, and for how long would they have to wear this?
The treatment regime that's been used to date in studies, case series, was 6 weeks, 3 times a week. 80 to 90% of all neurology patients go on to physical therapy. So we see this fitting very easily into physical therapy regime that concussion patients often go to.
Doug, explain a little bit about the IP that you have around this.
The IP is not around the method. That is actually, this has been used before for a stroke therapy. That therapy actually failed for the same reason we think that we're better, because we're giving enough energy. But what we've filed on is the actual article. The article that actually compensates for the fact that your temporal bone is so much thinner than, say, the crown of your head, where you lose about 75% more energy as you're sending it through to the brain. So really what our IP is around is getting a uniform energy to the actual cortex of the brain, the part that actually needs the energy. If you dump it into the skull, you don't gain anything.
And with the treatment regime that you talked about earlier, how much acceleration would you see in healing time?
As you saw on the first slide, we estimate that we can save approximately 50%. The mice studies have been 50% faster healing based on functional measures like, say, the ability to walk a straight line or the ability to hang on to a wire. Again, this is mice. So to date, the case series have been on chronic TBI patients whose symptoms essentially never went away, and it actually made them better, but it wasn't in controlled settings, and some of the results were uneven. The FDA, as I said, we had an FDA visit. They're excited because it goes back to the therapies haven't changed since my wife's concussion. Sorry, you were going to ask something.
I was just going to ask a little bit more about the FDA process and where you're at and what's next steps.
We had an initial pre-submission meeting back at the beginning of April. It was amazing. They were giving us hints on what they wanted to see in their in our breakthrough therapy pre-submission that we'll be submitting in May. They were giving us hints on what our sham controls ought to be for a trial and things that we ought to consider in the design. I've worked in medical device product development. They've never been that nice, ever. So they were very nice. I was amazed.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready? Okay. We have Anatomy Corporation.
I'm Patrick, this is Vince, and we founded Anatomy Corp to accelerate development for neurological treatments. The nervous system is complicated. It breaks down very easily. 1 in 7 people have a condition. It's $1 trillion problem. If you want to create something new, you have a 95% failure rate ahead of you. It takes about $4 billion to do this. Part of the problem is you're using animal models that don't quite reflect human biology. A better way to do it is to put patients in a dish. This would be more predictive and possibly reduce the failure. And you can do this now with stem cells. You can take stem cells, manufacture neurons, and that's great, but unfortunately it takes about 5 weeks to do this for every patient. If you imagine you want 9 patients in your study, it's going to take you about a year to do this. Luckily, we've created this new technology at the University of Minnesota, licensed to Anatomy Corp, that allows us to take this 35-day process, reduce it down to 7 days. This means that we can do 12 months of work in about 2 months. This will save millions over time. We're currently commercializing this as a media formulation that you can add to your stem cells that will produce neurons for people.
Anatomy Chrono Media is a premium product. Compared to competitors, we save users over 28 days in manufacturing time, results in a higher purity, and it's so easy to use, even an undergrad could use it. Our initial market is $200 million, and it's going to grow and replace the $1 billion market of primary neurons. Users of our beta version love it. They won't go back. We just received a $100,000 grant in order to start up operations and work on this full time. With another $400,000, we're able to scale sales and development to reach $3 million in revenue and profitability by year 3. Patrick and I have 15 years of stem cell experience and an MBA between the both of us. We have a rockstar team of advisors, Professor James Dutton at the Stem Cell Institute, and everyone in the newly formed Discovery Launchpad program here on campus. Thank you.
So how do you guys see, what's your path in order to reach these clients and these customers out there?
We found it most effective, and Vince can speak to this, going to research conferences.
We have been talking to customers. On one end, there's the academic customers. They're a little bit easier to get in touch with. They're not as worth as much money, but they will validate our product. The second market is the business to business. this contract research organizations and the pharma companies. And we're currently in discussions with one potentially worth $75,000 in annual revenue.
Is your product the media you're trying to sell, or is it the media plus the neurons and the regenerative product you're making?
So we didn't get into a lot of detail, but basically we envision multiple products, starting with just the media. People have their own stem cells, they buy our media, and then they can have this process in a bottle that allows them to make their own neurons. Moving forward, we're going to consider making our own neurons from the stem cells that we have, because there are customers out there who don't want to bother with making neurons, they just want the neurons. So if we're able to produce these neurons and ship them, that's also favorable. And then another aspect that we consider is making stem cells for people, making them the neurons, and then giving them the neurons. So that's more of a service model.
So what does your regulatory path look like?
This is all sort of research grade, so there's nothing really we have to consider for that.
Thank you.
I'm told that the live stream looks and sounds great, so that's fantastic.
Hello,
Okay.
I am Mark Mulvihill from Stratix Labs, and we have developed a platform technology that enables us to produce preserved biofilm samples that are shelf-stable, well-characterized, and ready to go for testing. So biofilms are a big problem. They are responsible for 80% of all human infections, many billions of dollars in human infections, billions of dollars in lost crop production, meat production, and microbial-induced corrosion impacting many different industries. So we think we have this awesome technology, right? But do we solve any real problems? So we got out of the building and we went and spoke with 100 potential customers in our first target market, the disinfectant industry, and this is what they told us. We learned that there is a young, rapidly growing shift to using biofilm models in R&D, and that regulatory frameworks were recently set in the last 2 years to enable them to actually get anti-biofilm product claims. However, the current testing methods that they use, the current growth methods, I should say, to grow the biofilms that they use have a ton of problems. They're resource intensive, time intensive, they are complex and difficult, and there's variability issues. All of these significantly impede their ability to actually develop anti-biofilm products. So in come our solution, Ready Now Biofilm. With our technology, with our products, they can now forego all the complexity and difficulty associated with actually growing the biofilms. So when you consider how they do it today, they currently spend 3 to 4 days growing a biofilm, dealing with all that complexity, all that difficulty, and when they get the resulting sample, it only takes them a couple hours to do the test and get their answers. So now, rather than taking an entire week to do one iteration of testing, they can come into work Monday morning, take our product off the shelf, within 20 minutes start their tests, within a couple hours have their answers, and now it's only Monday at lunchtime, allowing them to iterate a lot quicker, disrupting how they currently do their biofilm R&D and allowing them to get products to market quicker. All right. Questions, please.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what is the IP that you are creating?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So we have a foundational patent application around both the end product, the end preserved biofilm product, as well as our method of preservation that is broadly applicable to biofilms. And now we've identified about 5 or 6 key biofilm organisms that the disinfectant industry cares about, and we're going to be developing proprietary methods of manufacture as well as end product compositions around each of those products to build a nice, strong, defensible IP portfolio.
And it's a platform?
Yeah, platform technology has to do with how we're actually preserving them. Yeah.
So, Mark, maybe you just mentioned that, but how many different products will you be selling? How many different biofilm packages are there?
Yeah, it's a good question because you think bacteria, there could be a lot, right? Well, thankfully, especially with the first target market in disinfectants, there's like 6 key organisms that they care about. Your Pseudomonas, Staph, Listeria, Salmonella, organisms like that. And the current standard test methods only allow them to get claims against Pseudomonas and Staph, but they're itching to be able to get claims against those other organisms. So it's clear that there are just a small set of key revenue-driving organisms that they really care about in terms of getting product claims. And then that may vary a little different if you start looking at like the pharmaceutical market.
What's the cost of your biofilm and kind of what's your revenue model?
Yes. So these companies have very predictable testing requirements. They do a routine set of testing each week. So in speaking with them, we plan to establish supply contracts that we can both know our manufacturing needs ahead of time, lock in cash flows ahead of time, and offer them a discount off of list price. The profit margins on our end product are really good, above 90%. And currently, they spend over $50 to produce one single biofilm sample. And not only are we removing all that complexity, difficulty that goes into them producing that today, we're also adding a lot of value on top of that, such as, well, if they can do as many iterations as they currently do in a year, in a month, they can potentially get products to market faster. If they get a product to market faster 3, 6, 9, 12 months sooner, they stand to make a lot more money. So we haven't set a list price yet. We hope our first product will be out on the market early 2020. We're moving into our own lab next week, and we're on track to hit that milestone. So we expect that the price will be good for both of us. So,
what's the shelf life for something like this, and is there a distribution challenge in getting this shipped around?
Yeah, excellent question. So to date, with the studies we've done, we have an ongoing real-time stability study, and so far we have 3 months of good biofilm phenotype and viability upon rehydration. And then we're going to continue that, and we hope we can get up to a year of stability. And I could go into shipping, but it's not that big of a hurdle. We got it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cihan Behlevan. I'm the co-founder of Silent MD. This is my third digital health startup, and my other co-founder is an orthopedic surgeon. So we are in healthcare. I've been in healthcare in 18 years. So Silent MD, we call it AI-driven digital recovery platform for surgeries. And so it's a kind of a solution. So I like to talk about, so what is the problem? So, according to us and lots of orthopedic surgeons, we have a lack of managed, data-driven, and patient-centric post-surgical recovery pathways. What it means is, technically, we do these high-value surgeries, risky surgeries on patients, and we let them go home, and technically we don't follow up with them so much. And so, this is a problem since the start of the, modern medicine, but it wasn't turning into a problem until now, because now we have bundled payments. We have value-driven medicine. It's not fee-for-service anymore, and so it's becoming a profitability and cost issue for hospitals to better manage their, surgical recovery processes. And for surgeons, with the new remote monitoring codes, there wasn't ever a revenue possibility before. Now they have that possibility. And for the patients, we don't have a personalized care, we don't have personalized information, and we don't have any emotional and, logistical support in these processes. If it happens in the first couple days. And so the opportunity is, we like to go after the replacement surgeries. It's, that's our focus, our first market. It's a $25 billion industry market, and there are lots of quality and issues with it. And the platform will compose of wearable sensors and lots of data analytics. We will bring together, and then we will deliver the service. Thank you very much.
I'll ask this question because it was probably coming up in your pitch. What stage are you at with your product development?
We are in early seed stage. Right now, what we are doing is, we did lots of, from the data side, because our second company was a patient report outcomes company, so we have lots of predictive outcomes model we developed beforehand. So the variable is we have a development partner in Canada. So what they do is they call it smart textile computing, and so right now we are in the process of raising money to finalize the sleeve, and then start developing the platform.
Can you just briefly tell me about your team?
So my other co-founder is an orthopedic surgeon, and he has a PhD from MIT and MD from Harvard, and he's in knee biomechanics PhD. So he has lots of experience as a surgeon in total knee replacement. And our chief product officer just came out of United Healthcare, that one of their vice president product innovation there. And then our executive chairman is also a MD from town, and he's a kind of a consultant to both Optum and United Healthcare Ventures.
So is there going to be an app or some sort of of technology that the patient's going to have to enter a bunch of information in it so that you can figure out what's going on as the sensors are moving?
So the sleeve has 5 sensors. And so we will collect constantly range of motion continuously. We'll measure the swelling, so we will figure out the patient has a possible infection or not after, if the patient rests and the swelling doesn't go down. It's a kind of a red flag. And then we'll collect vitals, sleep patterns, and activities continuously, and then we'll turn them into a way that the patients can easily understand. And so, for example, every night you will get a feedback from us saying, John, you got 15,000 steps today. Your life space improved from 500 feet to 1 mile last 6 weeks. Your range of motion improvement is this. So if you go like this, you'll recover in 45 days. So our idea is to minimize, give patients interaction. But we don't want them to, do so much with the, app, because our average age is 65. So we just want to find the engaging, make it as simple as possible.
And do you have any evidence that this improves the outcomes?
Yes. And the reason why we are saying yes, because, in our previous company, patient report outcomes, we technically collect data, 50,000 patients, and we work with, Twin Cities Orthopedics, Park Nicollet, we work with University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And so from our engagement with those post-surgical patients, when you follow up with them and when you engage with them, their feedback is always positive. And we believe, we create that, connectivity. I think it will be successful for patients. So, thank you.
Right. Getting set with Phrase.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Jack Schneeman. I'm with Phrase. So right now, currently, over 50% of physicians' time is allocated towards clinical documentation. And what's more is that these clinicians have shown that this is the #1 driver of physician burnout, which is scary in that it affects nearly 80% of clinicians today. And even more so, kind of more frightening, is that this burnout can lead to a 300% increase in the medical error rate. And this increase in the medical error rate, in conjunction with this less meaningful work focused on the computer and medical documentation, is shown to increase clinical or physicians' depression and thereby thoughts of suicide. And burnout also, it's not only focused on the physicians and having negative effects on them, it also affects the health systems as well. A turnover for just one individual physician can cost upwards of $1 million. And that's not to say that disengaged physicians won't perform as well as we transition to a value-based environment. And kind of more importantly, we fundamentally lost the humanness in the sacred patient-clinician interaction. And it's created this epidemic of shallow medicine in medicine today that's fostered by this screen between. So we really think the time is now to address this problem before it gets any worse, and the technology is at a point where we can do that. At Phrase, we've created an AI-driven digital medical scribe that automates a significant portion of the clinician's medical note. And the way we do that is that we have a text bot that interacts with the patient prior to the visit in conjunction with an audio recording of the visit itself. And that's fed through our AI software to produce the first rendition of the medical note. And then that is rapidly reviewed, edited, and signed off on by the physician. And we've shown that we can save 1.5 hours per day per physician through our internal simulations and tests. We'll be selling it for $299 a month per user. And we think we really have the team to make this a success with domain tech and business acumen. So thank you. Questions?
Jack, can you tell me a little bit about what the competition is out there and what your competitive advantage and
Definitely.
Protected advantage will be?
That's a fantastic question. So we view kind of competitors in 3 buckets, right? So there's the traditional medical scribes that are humans, but they're prone to error. They're very expensive, upwards of $35,000 a year. We're a tenth of that cost. Then you have the pure dictation software solutions like a Nuance or an M-Modal. M-Modal was just recently acquired by 3M locally here. And they're post-visit pure dictation software. So they expedite a bit of the note, but it is post-visit and still requires a significant amount of time. And then we view our pure competitors. It's a very nascent space. There's about 6 of them, and they operate similarly, but none of them have more than, from what we internally estimate, over 25 users right now, so it's very new, kind of wide open market. And our key differentiators are, first and foremost, we design our technology and our software around the customer. We have co-founders that are doctors themselves, and a lot of these companies are coming from a tech background. But we utilize this TextBot technology on the front end that can make the note actually more accurate by providing context to the AI software that the other competitors are not doing. And then furthermore, we're looking to specifically kind of have our beachhead markets in the Midwest, rural markets as well, compared to where the competitors are on the West Coast.
Can you talk a little bit about the integration into the other, EHRs, and then also the selling into the physicians and the clinics, and what you're encountering there, and what your expectation is for a sales cycle there?
Yeah, so that's a great question too. So as of right now, we operate in parallel with the EMR, so it's just a simple click to get our free text note into the EMR itself. But as we receive additional funding, there are solutions out there that help with integration, like a Redox or IFAT. And basically, so we eventually think we can get to that next iteration once we continue to improve on our product, and that shouldn't be an issue, lower hurdles there. And in terms of, sorry, your second question?
Sales cycle. Sales
cycle, right. So as of right now, we're working specifically to identify the practice managers and key champion physicians who are interested in this technology. And we envision it to be shorter because we're working with the smaller independent clinics versus a larger health system. Eventually, when we prove that we can save this significant amount of time, eventually working with those health systems. But we're already partnering with Wisconsin Medical Society, for example, to help us get kind of integrated into the larger health systems as well. Any questions? Thank you.
Almost ready? And our last presentation, Morari Medical.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Bennett of Morari. In the 2 minutes it takes to deliver this pitch, 30 million men would have experienced an ejaculation due to a condition known as premature ejaculation. Specifically, premature ejaculation is the #1 male sexual dysfunction. Greater in prevalence than erectile dysfunction, greater in prevalence than BPH, yet it's a topic that men don't want to talk about. The reality is 1 in 3 men suffer from this disorder, and only 1 in 10 men will go seek a professional help via a physician. And very few physicians will bring it up with patients because there's not good treatment options that exist today. So obviously, premature ejaculation is not about life or death. It's all about quality of life. It's about relationship strain. It's about strain on sexual health in general. And it's an issue that affects both men and women. This is a word cloud of some market research that we did, talking to both men and women, and you see common words such as frustration, disappointment, embarrassment. So it's a male issue, but the female impact of this cannot be underestimated. So the reality is that there's been no innovation in this space for over 20 years. There's treatment options that exist in the forms of antidepressants that have a side effect of delaying ejaculation. There's sprays that you can apply that also rub off on the partner, but there's no device-based solution. This is the team that's going to solve this. Myself, I've got over 20 years experience in medical device marketing, Medtronic, Boston Scientific. Dr. Dick & Co. is our Harvard-based urologist. Michael Hoy is a local serial entrepreneur, and this is the team that will develop the first device-based solution for premature ejaculation. So neuromodulation is not a new concept. It's been used in many parts of the body to include the spinal cord for chronic pain, the brain for deep brain stimulation. No one has taken it to the penis. That's what we're going to do. So our device is basically a Band-Aid that has electronic components in it that would be placed in the perineal area and have electrodes that would inhibit the neural activity. So our validation, we've filed a patent, and we've got market research with plenty of males and females, and we've developed traction in the form of Procter & Gamble, and I'd be happy to answer any questions related to market access and Procter & Gamble. Thank you.
So can you explain a little bit how this is used? Is it a one-time use?
Yep. Yeah, it is similar to a Band-Aid. It would be a single use. It has a battery, 2 batteries in here that can control the electrodes that would deliver a mild form of electricity to inhibit the neural activity. After an intercourse event, you would simply dispose of it and take a new one. We anticipate that the cost of goods would be under $2, and the average selling price would be $10 per unit.
Is this something you're going to try and go over the counter for or prescribed?
Over the counter. And that's where a partnership with Procter & Gamble, we are one of 3 companies invited to pitch at their Innovation Challenge back in January, where we were brought to Las Vegas and we presented in their booth, and we won the event. So Procter & Gamble, 182-year-old company selling Tide and Charmin, to talk about premature ejaculation shows the opportunity that exists, and what they were looking for is their next billion-dollar brands. So the time is right for this type of opportunity because you hear more and more on TV and the media about sexual health in general. And there's another online opportunity that we have, a partnership with a company called Roman, who sells ED drugs online, and it's shipped directly to their home. We've had conversations with their CEO. They're absolutely interested. But this, again, a single-use device.
And how much evidence do you have that it works?
Great question. So we did a proof of concept with 4 volunteers, myself being one of them, where we used basically TENS, electrodes that were off the shelf. They were connected to cables to a generator, not the exact intimate setting that you would hope and want. But the 4 volunteers all reported that it delayed an ejaculation. So this year will be a product that will test in feasibility in the next couple months. We're actually working with the University of Minnesota to do the study, as well as Mayo Clinic. And the electrodes, again, would inhibit that neural activity.
And what's the regulatory requirement for this?
510K with a predicate device that exists. The predicate device not being a neuromodulation device, but something that has the indication for premature ejaculation.
Any safety issues?
We don't believe so. We're delivering such a mild form of electrical current that's very similar to what's already available on the marketplace today. So you can go to CVS and Target and buy TENS units that help with back pain and muscle pain. Again, it's just no one's taken that approach down to the pelvic region. And that's where we see the opportunity, is that there is not a device-based solution for this market at all.
What are you looking for?
What are we looking for?
Investment.
We're looking for investments. Yep, we're sort of in a seed round phase where that investment will help get through this feasibility study. We've got a number of provisional patents that we filed. We need to get some utility patents out of that, as well as an FDA pre-submission meeting. So that's what we're looking for the next round. Up until now, it's been friends and family. Thank you.
Well, that was a great end to a fantastic session. Will the Walleyes please grab your goods, take your computer so you can give each one of the teams the great feedback we know you give, and good luck with your judging. I think you're going to have a tough time. So For those that are here in the audience, of course, there's a deliberation process here. There's a couple of things I wanted to get you to be thinking about. This is our 7th event, and we actually have some participants that have actually been at all 7 events. In this case, it's one of the Walleyes, Dr. Perry Hackett, which you met earlier. I thought while the judges are getting out, I thought he could tell you a little bit about his perspective on the Walleye tank, but also sort of what are the judges doing right now? And so what are they doing, Perry, and what are they getting ready to judge?
Well, first of all, I'm really embarrassed at how few people are here from the University of Minnesota. I know when I go to Rochester, the auditorium is packed and there are people standing looking on. So I'm just wondering where the investors are here in the Twin Cities that they're not here. That's the first thing. That's my first observation. The second observation that I have, though, is that the people who do present here are actually pretty spectacular. We had an innovators celebration at the University of Minnesota about a month ago, and 2 of the winners of innovation awards actually had presented at the Walleye tank. And indeed, they were very appreciative of the opportunities that they had to really start at the very beginning to hone their skills in presenting their work to potential investors that were around. In fact, I think in both cases it was at Rochester that they were presenting. So the people that you're seeing here really do represent the future in terms of economic development here in Minnesota, Twin Cities as well as Rochester. And in the case of the 2 awardees or groups that were awarded, of course they are from the University of Minnesota. Oh, what's it like to judge? Well, thank God there's a lot of judges because for those of us who are more into nucleic acids and biotech, listening to discussions on medical devices and the like is really tough. But I think what it does to us is to get us thinking about what the real practical applications are of the ideas that you're hearing here. And the people who are presenting in the beginning, of course, it's more ideas and it's a little less developed. Hopefully those who are the junior walleyes here are going to learn from the people who are presenting in the second round about how you have to up your game. And in fact, I heard 2 presentations just in the short time I was here from people who have represented. It's very clear that things are getting better for them. But it's a challenge. And, there aren't any bad ideas, but there are ideas that very clearly aren't ready for prime time, that just don't have products that I think people will buy. And that's one of the things that I saw up here with the person who was presenting after they'd had an I-Corps experience where they got out of the building, they contacted 100 potential payers and found out that, yes, there was something, in their case biofilms, that people were interested in. I know in our I-Corps experience, 70 to 80% of the people weren't ready to go out because in the end no one wanted their product. That's perfectly all right. That's what you'll learn here, is whether or not what you think is great is really as good as you think it is. And that's a challenge we all have. When we're writing research grants, it's the same thing. We think that we've got an outstanding project, and then the grants committee doesn't even decide to review it. They think it's so awful.
Oh, Fernando.
mean, of course, I'll echo Perry, but certainly within the deliberations we have in the room, everybody lends their expertise because the diversity is good enough that we have folks that are experts with devices, and then, of course, Perry and I are more in the biotech space. But I think we all recognize that successful companies have a common thread, and it starts at an appreciation of what the market is, a realistic one, the ability to get this across in the very small space of time that you have allotted to you. And I think the write-ups also help because I think we spent a good amount of time also checking out what you guys had described about the underpinnings of your work. So it's been fun.
Great. So we have, in the December event, we actually had a number of interviews of participants. We have them on a YouTube video, so we thought we'd play a couple while we're waiting for the judges to get us back their answers. Amanda, are we almost ready? We hope the audio is good. Oh. All right.
So hi, I'm Pat Dillon, and I'm with the Minnesota High Tech Association, and I'm the commonly referred to as the SBIR goddess. Somebody said that yesterday. It wasn't you, Patrick or Vincent. I know that. It was you, Mary. Oh, okay. So, how many of you have heard of SBIR? I got quite a few. For those of, huh? I am. Yeah, so federal funding. So Perry talked about research grants. Well, that's what SBIR is to small businesses. It's research grants to help support R&D, to help move you along towards commercialization. And the best part of SBIR is that it's non-dilutive, and you keep the IP. And if there's an opportunity to actually transition that SBIR-funded product or service back into the government, because they might be a customer, there's the potential to have sole source contracts in the future. So this is a pretty cool program. It's been around since 1982, and there's been about $47 billion awarded to companies all across the United States. If you've heard of Qualcomm or 23andMe or Yahoo or Symantec, NVE here in Minneapolis, Surmatics, several companies, that are raising capital through investors and so forth. So, it's a pretty important program for startups and existing companies. So once you learn the process and you're successful, and if you don't win on the first time, which happens a lot, you go back in, you try it again. So what I do is I help people navigate through that process. And I actually just had a call earlier today with a client that was a startup that was at the Medical Device Innovation Center here, and that started up a company and got some funding through the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. And he wasn't successful on the second phase, and which is unfortunate, but, you know, we're going to forge ahead. You got to be very, very focused and very persistent and tenacious to be successful in this program. And so I'm the educator, navigator, translator, and like I said to him, I'm also a therapist, because when you're not successful, it's very disappointing. And you just have to forge ahead. It's not easy. And people say, oh, Pat, you shouldn't say that so much. But I got to be truthful, and keep people to walk in with both eyes open and just persevere. And I have a lot of respect for innovators and entrepreneurs, because what you guys do is not easy. So keep up the good work. And I guess our video is ready to go. Thank you.
All right. So, Pat, I have one important question. Being a startup person myself, how much are your services?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It's $0. Right, yeah. So where do I get my funding from? Well, I write a proposal every year to get funding through the Small Business Administration in Washington. And then I have funding through the state of Minnesota through the Department of Employment and Economic Development. So that's what funds, and then there's funding that comes through from MHTA as well. So I'm like the best deal in town, folks. All right, thank you, Steve.
All right, are we ready? Yeah, I'll give an applause for that's awesome services.
The project is called AFN. It's an adjustable fracture nail where we are hoping to improve patient outcome in terms of patients that have a long bone fracture, and hopefully we can reduce with this invention rotation errors, which result in poor patient prognosis, long-term outcome for bone health and joint health. I hope that this is the perfect venue to get attention to this project, and hopefully have the right people at Mayo help us create this as a real prototype, and hopefully in the future patent and license it. Definitely to try to be precise and bring like an idea into words, into a small movie that we created, and to kind of being very, very concise in something that could be rather complicated, but trying to make it, very tangible.
Yeah, so it's kind of just fallen into place. My whole life I've kind of felt like a little entrepreneurial, but never really known how to make that happen. I've always kind of wanted to, but through the course of my PhD in the last 3 or 4 years, I've just been working on various projects, and this algorithm that is kind of at the heart of what we would propose to do has really been developed over the past year in some different contexts, and starting to realize that, hey, something like this could actually have some real value, and trying to figure out where that value really is and how to go after that. I work in the neuromodulation space, and in that space, things like spinal cord stimulation, deep brain stimulation, you have these devices that are fundamentally similar to hearing aids. You have a device that provides some sort of therapy and has parameters, just like a hearing aid does. But we face a very similar problem in that the current model is you get these implanted, and you have to come back and forth with the clinician and get them tuned, coming back every month for a year or two. And it's a very exhaustive process. And so I've devoted the last 4 years to building algorithms to help solve that problem. And in thinking about that problem and realizing that there are other things that meet that definition if you step back and think a little more broadly. And so a hearing aid is something that really has a broad impact. A lot of people have need for it. 45, 50 million people are hearing deficient. And so there's a broad need for that, but also there's a little lower barrier to entry than, say, spinal cord stimulation. So that's kind of how we settled on that space as a place to go. At Carlson School of Management, been talking to Carla Pavone, and she sent me an email like 3 weeks ago and said, hey, sent me a link, you should apply for this. And I was like, yeah, okay, will do. And so put in the application. It's interesting, it's intimidating, and it's exciting. I mean, it's still pretty early. Don't know if this is actually going to go anywhere, but I'm excited to try to pursue it. But it's going from the point of saying, hey, I've got something that I think could be valuable, and then trying to talk to people who know, okay, is this actually something valuable? And if it is, who do I talk to, and how do I go about extracting the value from that and actually building something out of it? And meeting people along the way, meeting people like Ian, and kind of building those relationships. And so it's been exciting. It's nerve-wracking because I don't know very much about the business world per se. I don't have any formal business education, but you learn a lot along the way. So, I mean, other than our first appearance at Walleye, the student competition last week, we hadn't really had much interaction. But since then, there's been some back and forth over emails in the last week, and the office hours this morning are already pretty helpful. So hopefully going to go back for round 2 shortly. Thinking about putting dollar signs in front of things and figuring out what the actual value of things are. Like, I'm a scientist. Like, I'm like, this is cool. I think this will solve a problem. And somebody's like, well, how are you gonna make money? I was like, I just think it's really cool. I just want to make it happen. So having to think about all aspects is. Yeah. Walleye Tank really just hope to make some connections and to talk to people who know what they're doing and get some feedback and to hear, hey, maybe somebody's going to hear our pitch and say, maybe that's not the right way to go, and give us some advice on some other direction to take this. Or maybe we'll hear that there is no real opportunity here, but so far we have been hearing that there is. And so, just to get some more feedback and to make connections and to meet some people, really. The algorithm is in existence. We're working on the alpha prototype, getting our hands on hearing aids and making that work right now. I would love to have like an alpha prototype in the next 6 months that we could try out with. My dad has hearing aids, and he already volunteered to be a first test subject. But in all reality, it'd be great to build an alpha prototype and get started on something like this soon.
I qualified from the alligator tank, and how did I get there? It started like 2 years ago, two and a half years ago, when I was in the OR with Dr. Q and Dr. Tatum as my mentors and my team members. So we were in the OR, and it was a weak cranium. And Dr. Q was telling Dr. Tatum, we need better tool for monitoring the patient for epilepsy. And Dr. Tatum was like, the tools that we have still great, but not optimal. I'm sorry, optimal but not great. But then we came up with this idea about the QT grid. It's like circular in shape, very nice, very intuitive in my opinion. And it's also it resembles the Earth and the sun, because circle is very natural, geometrical, simple. So it's and then when we started doing it, it become natural to us, that we have to patent and all of that stuff. We were naive. Dr. Q has several patents, but Dr. Tatum and I were still new in the field, and we learned a lot about the process. We met a lot of people, and we got a lot of help. To be honest with you, I never saw myself in becoming here. Last year in the alligator tank, I was there, one of my friends, and he was senior resident. He was giving his pitch in the alligator tank, and I'm like, wow, I would never be this place. And a year later, I'm here. It has been not a challenge, but exciting. It just definitely different than medicine. Medicine, you know exactly what you're doing. It's just, you're gonna do it. And it's in books. But being in business is not in books. You have to take the scientific learnings that you have and apply it to real life. So, and I was like, wow, that makes sense. And that's how I learned, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely I did not learn that from medical school. I learned a little bit in like my fellowship, but it's not like something, it comes natural to medical student or the people research or medical field. Because we learn like, oh, okay, we gotta like publish or we're gonna do like study for boards, but we never thought about going to actual life. We never thought about, oh, okay, so what if we need this new device? What if this thing and what if this thing? But I found myself just asking these questions and nobody's answering except very few. And I was like, okay, so how to do that? And I started learning. I enrolled to the entrepreneurship class and I'm finishing right now. For the alligator tank, it was very exciting. To be honest with you, I was not expected to win. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go there, like have fun, enjoy the time. I'm there, and I was like, won. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then like the mentorship, like Martin, Amanda, and everyone around them, they just like helped a lot because they just like I remember my first time giving a pitch was Martin and Vic. They told me, oh, that's great, but it took you 5 minutes. But I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. And then they asked me, like, they tried to get to the core of the problem. And I was like, okay, I know what's the core of the problem, or I saw that I know the core of the problem. But while like having like these classes and these sessions, and I realized that the core of the problem is very, very simple question, not what I thought it would be. So the core problem is we need direct access to the brain and monitor the electrical activity at the same time. That's the core of my device, or the QT grid. I will go back again to my first time I pitched the idea to Martin. He told me, that's great, but you are giving me the solution. I was like, wait a second, I'm giving you the problem. But once I knew the problem, or once we dig down to the real problem, it makes very clear, it's very simple, and it makes it come naturally. So it's just like a waterfall. Everyone is, if it's like floating through the waterfall, you're gonna fall naturally. So you don't need anything else, like just need gravity. And when you go to the core of the problem, it's just gonna come natural to you.
So just for a quick context, so the Mayo Clinic Florida campus has their own local competition. It's called the Alligator Tank. They named it. And then the winners of that Alligator Tank will pitch in the December edition of the Walleye Tank. And they've almost always done well. Those teams from Florida have done a great job of coming from Florida to Minnesota in December. Not necessarily the best range for the weather, but they've done a great job. Do we have another piece? Or that was the core, right? Thank you, Amanda, for putting that together. And the Martin that was mentioned is Dr. Martin Rotman, who wasn't here in December, at the Walleye Tank in December. He's actually the Office of Entrepreneurship Scholar down in Florida. And since I'm filling time, one of the key positions that we're opening is the equivalent of a Dr. Rotman or Dr. Leitner's position, but it would be in Mayo Clinic, Arizona, helping facilitate the Mayo Clinic, Arizona campus, which is funded to double over the next 10 years. And so there's an enormous opportunity for those that want to build an ecosystem there in the Phoenix area, Phoenix Scottsdale area. So we're excited by that. They haven't picked the name of their event. The Rattlesnake Pit has been suggested. I will let them pick. I use that as a placeholder to remind myself that it's not an aquatic place in the desert down there in Arizona. You know what? We've given the judges a hard job. That's all I can say, because they're still deliberating. I will actually mention, since the contestants are here, so for the winners of the day's events, you still have to apply for the Minnesota Cup. I'm going to say it again. You still have to go through the Minnesota Cup application. So you're guaranteed in the semifinalists, but you still need to put the paperwork in. We've had this glitch in the past. So I'm reminded to make sure you do so. I'm going to encourage you, if you're in this competition, You're going to get a whole bunch. I think they're still able to submit and get through the open competition. I encourage you to go ahead and apply. The Minnesota Cup process is a fantastic support and development structure for your ideas. Trying to think, what else do we have that's on the... Oh, when does the start? Hold, why don't you describe?
Thank you. So in Rochester, we do have a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem for people here. June 21st through 23rd, we have Startup Weekend. It's a regional startup weekend in Rochester. It's really for anybody, not just people starting out, but it's a really great way to come together on Friday night, pitch an idea and get the whole way through the whole business cycle to prototyping that idea on a Sunday. Your ideas here are obviously too complex to do over 3 days, but it's really understanding that concept of how to work with the team, how to work with others, how to deal with your idea not getting picked, and and also selling people on your idea so that you get to pursue it. So it's a really great experience. Not only do you get to work with teams, you get great mentorship over the weekend. So that'll be in Rochester, June 21st through 23rd. There is an early bird special going on right now, and I believe the website is, I think it's swroch.com, something like that. If someone wants to know, you can email me and I will let you know. But it's a good experience to learn about entrepreneurship in a very accelerated process of time, or try out a new idea.
Almost done? Okay, we've told they're almost done. Any key pace? And then from terms of networking, I do want you to pay attention to the brochure, the handout. So there are contact names for each of the companies in the brochure. So I encourage you to grab it if you want to either reach for business to business or any other connections. That's been a successful space. All right. I feel like it should sing the Jeopardy song. Da, 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 da. All right, so shortly.
Can the groups that presented, if they need something from the community, can they share with the group what they need, and that way they can get resources and they can start dialogue and the networking after?
Yep, we'll take. Anybody wants to speak up? What are they looking for? Perry's question, right? What are you looking for?
Hi, so we were Snow Diagnostics. I think, we're still really early in this process, so any connections that we can have to infectious disease doctors, lab directors, those are the folks that we want to talk to, run this idea by, and get their feedback. So we're still doing a lot of the voice of the customer interviews, so names, phone numbers, emails, anything you got would be helpful. Thank you.
Hi, Logan from Skylark Labs with the AI-driven hearing aids. So right now we're actually just starting our iCore grant, and so we've got to rack up a lot of interviews. And so if you guys know anybody that is a hearing aid user or the spouse of a hearing aid user that we could talk to, that'd be great, because it's kind of difficult to find the more mild to moderate people, because they don't really want to come out and say it right away. So refer us, and it'd be great. It'd be great.
I have a father-in-law for you.
Hi, Mark here from Stratix Labs. We have the preserved biofilms. We are currently raising funding, so we have about half subscribed our what you maybe call friends and family or pre-seed round. We're just looking to close that to hit some major milestones here in about the next 6 to 9 months, and then we'll be jumping into our seed round pretty quickly here before the end of 2019. So if you have any interest in investing around those stages, please come grab me. Thank you. Oh, and here's...
Let me just make a quick announcement. Hi, my name is Punar Karajamandic. I am an associate professor here at Carlson, and I'm also the academic director of the Medical Industry Leadership Institute. For those of you who have presented ideas and pitches, thank you so much. It's always so much fun to hear innovations. We have in the Medical Industry Leadership Institute a program called the Valuation Lab, Medical Industry Valuation Lab. So if you would like your idea to be assessed in a rapid market assessment way, we have please submit your idea. We have a pretty streamlined process that you could submit your idea to our lab through our website. So please check us out and let me know. Contact me if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Sounds like a great resource.
Hi, I'm Doug Devins from Aurora Concussion Therapy, and we have enough money to get right now after our friends and family round, through our animal study, through the breakthrough therapy pre-submission with the FDA, but we hope to get to clinical trials by the end of the month, a first stage 20-patient feasibility. So we're looking for funding also.
That's great. All right, some of our walleyes are back. Does that mean we have names? We have decisions? Oh, we have one more while we get set up. Do we have the prizes, Amanda? Amanda, do we have the prizes? Are we ready? Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Adib with Galileo Technologies. We're actually hosting a demo day event next week, on May 14th, where we're having people try out the technology and try it out with in a wheelchair or driving around a little car. If any of you are interested or know any, any paraplegics or quadriplegics or anyone who's interested in their assistive technology people at all, our contact information is on the brochure. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Do you know about the Assistive Tech Challenge down in Rochester? Yep. Okay, great. You should definitely come. Be fantastic. All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack from Phrase. Similar to some of the other folks, we're in fundraising mode right now, seed fundraising. So if you know anyone that might be interested in our technology, and then secondly, we're looking for champions, physicians who you are looking to kind of mitigate their problems with this clinical documentation. So if you know any folks who might be interested in reaching out, you got my email. It's on the pamphlet here. It's .co instead of .com, just for edits there.
That's good. Efficient with one less character. Okay, are we ready? All right, Tracy. Do you have the junior? Okay, this is the runner-up. Okay, so for the Walleye Tank 2019 spring opener, the junior angler runner-up is Medical Dynamics. Come on down. Okay, and the winner, remember, you need to fill out the paperwork for Minnesota Cup or you don't get in. You still have to show up. 90% of life is still showing up. Is Ascension. Come on down. I was hoping she would have stumped the judges. You almost did. You almost did. Okay, so we have a couple things for you. So you get the lure. Exactly. So here's the important thing. So this is a tradition that you don't want to find a small investor. You want to find a big investor. So you don't want to use a little lure. You want to use a big lure. And so that's the origin of that. And so congratulations. Yes, great job. Thank you. Okay, the runner-up gets this wonderful walleye cribbage set, okay? So I know for a fact, because I've wandered into some of the prior winners, these are proudly displayed. This year, it is Stratix Labs. Come on down. And I don't think you have to know cribbage to enjoy it. I think it can.
My girlfriend was trying to get me to play. Thank you.
Nice job.
Much. I appreciate it.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you. All right. And the winner of the professional division and also gets this Minnesota-made 3D metal walleye from town in northern Minnesota, which says the Walleye Tank Spring 2019 professional winner, and also getting into the semifinalists in the Minnesota Cup's Life Science Division, which has over 1,000 applications every year, is Moriarty Medical. Come on down. So you need to bend it a little so that it fits. And I was really impressed. You've made a lot of progress. We've got a chance to see it. Congratulations. And you well represent our ecosystem. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, with that, I have one other thing. I want to thank some critical people, Dr. Amanda Leitner and Zachary Warjonkis. They are the magic behind the scenes to make this all go. And for those of you that are participants, you interact with them, even though it's some sort of anonymous. And actually, Dr. Martin Rotman, who's down in Florida, has been essential, although he has been helping at a distance this time. So I want to thank the Walleyes once more, please. They give their time and their energy and their enthusiasm every year. Every time. And we will have food. We're right on schedule for the food. There's outside. Go network. Go and be great. And if you have any questions or you need to reach me, I'll be around. Thank you.